Alright, hi people, it's Shakes here, and I'm here to do a different kind of video for this one. And that is basically a recap of every Super Sentai DVD released by Shout Factory, or DVD set released by Shout Factory, from 2015 all the way to 2022. The end of 2022. Considering there's only 2 months left in the year, I doubt we're going to get another Super Sentai set before the year is out. And I'll talk about the future later on in the video. So, yeah, so I thought to do just this kind of video to talk about the humble beginnings and where we are currently. And all the differences and little things along the way in regards to things that changed between sets and between years as Shout Factory got more used to and adept at doing these things. So yeah. So back in 2014, for the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers, it was like mid to late 2014, we got an announcement from Shout Factory that they would be releasing Kyoryu Sensei Zyuranger, the source material to Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, on DVD over here in the States for the first time ever for that. They, from what I've heard from Sound Out 12, and I'll talk more about Sound Out 12 in a little while, from what he has heard, apparently that was, they were able to do it, and this is basically how people, I think, were assuming it happened. Shout Factory were able to license the series through Saban, or through Saban's contacts at Toei, for a DVD release here in the States, fully subtitled, and and they did that for the 21st year. This was released, I believe, in February of 2015. They released it for the 21st year, and 22 years after the show had premiered in Japan in 1992, or no, 23 years after it premiered in Japan in 1992, for Western Power Ranger fans and also Super Sentai fans. And I think personally that this is what has started the certain craze of tokusatsu that we've slowly been getting over the last several years. Because after this, we had Subaraya licensing Ultraman. Then we had Toei licensing out Kamen Rider, or more so licensing out Kamen Rider, because they've licensed Kamen Rider to a few different companies before. But Shout Factory have the license to several different series of Kamen Rider, and I hope that they announce more Blu-ray sets soon, because they have the rights to 4 or 5 seasons, and they've only released 2 thus far. But yeah, and then we have Discotheque, I believe, releasing Kamen Rider Black next year. And then we have Discotheque as well, licensing some of the Metal Hero shows, and I do hope that they can get the licenses to more of those as time goes on. And then I assume as well other companies are also releasing other tokusatsu stuff. So yeah, as the source material to all of these shows that have been adapted into Saban tokusatsu, American tokusatsu properties have gotten more recognized over here, and the companies realize, oh, we can license these things for a more niche market, because we're more niche companies anyways. And if we budget these things and market them decently, we can sell all of these things in the United States for the people that want them, and the potential new audience we could reach as a result. And I think Shout Factory was definitely the best company that Toei and Saban could have gone with to license and distribute Super Sentai, because, well, they're one of 2 companies that currently has the home media rights, well, 3 actually, the home media rights to Power Rangers. And before they released Ranger, they had released the first 17 Power Rangers seasons, and they've since re-released on Blu-ray the first 2 Power Rangers films. The other companies are Lionsgate, which has everything from Samurai onwards for DVD and Blu-ray distribution, as well as I think digital, or at least they help with digital distribution. And I think Shout might help Saban with, or might have helped Saban with the digital distribution on digital storefronts for the previous seasons as well. And then currently Netflix, because it's a co-production with them, I believe, for the last few years, since since Dino Fury basically started, or when it entered its second season, or halfway through the first season, whenever it was. It's basically a co-production at this point with Netflix, and now Netflix has pretty much the distribution rights for Beast Morphers and Dino Fury, and whatever future projects they do, because they've officially announced the team up between Hasbro, E1, their distribution wing, and Netflix. So, yeah, although technically I guess you could count that as 4, but technically E1 is a subsidiary under Hasbro, so yeah. But I believe that this was the best way that they could have started these releases, because apparently, and this is, I believe, mainly rumor, but I assume it's substantiated somewhere, otherwise it wouldn't be as big of a rumor as it was, or is. Apparently Media Blasters in the 2000s, so 20 years ago, wanted to license Super Sentai for distribution here in the US, where they would subtitle them and release them on DVD. Disney, who owned the Power Rangers franchise at the time, didn't want that to happen, because I think they didn't want competition or the market to not be skewed in their favor with Power Rangers, which is weird because they hated having Power Rangers, but whatever. Basically bought up all the distribution rights to Super Sentai so that no company could individually go to Toei and license Super Sentai to release in its original raw form. So, yeah. But when it came to Saban, they didn't have that problem. They didn't care, actually, mainly because I'm assuming what happened is because a lot of these seasons or a lot of these series were adapted into Power Rangers years prior, and they've already made as much money as they're going to on the shows themselves rather than just the merchandise. They just didn't have a problem with it, and from what Soundout 12 has apparently said, from what he's found out from, I guess, people who work at Shout Factory or someone who works at Shout Factory or something, when Shout Factory were done releasing Power Rangers, when they finished releasing RPM, they wanted more Power Rangers stuff to release and everything, so they could keep that kind of thing going in regards to that material. They asked Saban what they could do, and I guess it was the higher-ups at Saban that asked if they wanted to license Super Sentai for distribution, and they jumped at the chance. Which is nice. It's good that the people behind these things have a passion for releasing these, and don't just, half-ass it, although there are problems, apparently, on some of the releases I will get into in a little bit. But, yeah. So that's a bit of backstory on how we got these things, is that it was a long time coming, and Shout Factory would be the company that licensed these seasons. Unfortunately, due to how Toei licenses out their properties, and this is the same with their anime licenses and other shows that they produce that are part of franchises that have movies attached to them and TV specials and whatever, Toei counts those as a different license. Now, for movies, I kind of get it. TV specials, not really. Even Saban, when they licensed various Super Sentai and Disney, when they license various Super Sentai movies and TV specials and whatever to use footage from, it was separate from the license for the individual shows. So, yeah. So, basically, none of these series, unfortunately, have their movies attached to them. Which Toei has since done. When it came to Kamen Rider 01, they gave Shout Factory a few, I believe, of the TV specials to include on their release. Which I don't know necessarily if that was part of a separate release or if Toei counts it as part of the regular TV series episode count, but they got them and they put them on. They put them on their streaming services and the Blu-rays that we have, and I think they also released that on DVD. But yeah, although Kamen Rider Kuga does not have that if it got movies or TV specials, but I don't know much about Kamen Rider Kuga as a TV series if it did, so I don't know. But yeah, despite Shout Factory's want to be able to license Die Ranger's movie, which I will get to in a second in regards to Die Ranger, none of these TV shows have the movies, and I assume that's because of the license, costs and everything. Now, I don't believe that these cost too terribly much to license, because of the fact that, and Brian Ward has made this abundantly clear a bunch of times throughout the last 8 years, is that, or 7 years, whenever he started saying it. I think it was probably like 2015 or 2016. Basically, as long as these Super Sentai sets continue to sell, and the, I guess, and I assume the newer sets, sell decently well and keep the hype train going and everything, they will continue to license more Super Sentai seasons for subbing and distribution here in the US and Canada, wherever Region 1 territories are. And that he has made that abundantly clear since 2015. I believe since before or after Die Ranger was announced. So Sound Out 12 didn't know that, and I'm just saying it right here. That's been a constant thing that people have been reiterating over the last 7 years, is that if these sets continue to sell well enough to justify the price of licensing them, they will continue to license more in the future, So, yeah. So basically, when it comes to these things, like I said, because of the fact that these are older and everything, these seasons are older and everything, and Super Sentai isn't that hot of a commodity compared to Power Rangers over here in the West. I think that Toei doesn't really price each license that much. Granted, I don't know the raw numbers, so I could be just talking out of my ass, and that's perfectly fine if they talk about the numbers at some point in the future. We'll see. But yeah, for instance, I assume if they were to license a newer season of Super Sentai, like if they were to license, let's say, Ryu Soldier, the series that was adapted as the Dino Fury, or even Zenkaiger. Let's go a few seasons above Zenkaiger, the series from the year before I'm recording this, which the current series is Dawn Brothers. So if they were to license Zenkaiger, they would probably have to pay a hefty premium to be able to license it and distribute it over here in the West. As compared to the older seasons, which more than likely aren't the new hotness, so it doesn't matter. And so he doesn't charge an arm and a leg for it, comparatively speaking, in regards to licenses. I know they have to pay thousands to probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to license these things. But still. So yeah. So basically, if you like any Super Sentai season, or you want to see future seasons, or if you do want to contribute to seeing future seasons that you do definitely like or would want to check out, you have to support these. You have to buy at least some of them, if you want to see more of them. I'm assuming as well, since there are currently 14 sets, they bundle the amount of money all of them make into licensing more, which is always good. So a lot of the money always goes back into the company to license more products, which is good. So I don't think any of the people at Shout Factory are bad faith or are bad actors. Because Shout Factory do always seem to have a good amount of passion when it comes to licensing these things and making sure that they get the best releases possible out of what they have. So, yeah. And unfortunately, though, they also don't have any bonus material from the Japanese DVDs, if the Japanese DVDs did have them. And it kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's like, can't blame them. That's probably a separate license, and then they also, with Toei, probably have to work out, rights issues and all that, and whatever for the actors and the other people that appear, and they might not be able to get those, which is sad, but it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate thing, and, yeah. Now, if it were Toei directly, if Toei had a distribution arm themselves, rather than having to license out their stuff to over here in the United States, I'm pretty sure Toei could get the clearance pretty easily, or they would get the clearance when they get it for Japan, to be able to have these bonus features be made available over here on these releases. But yeah. So, no movies, no TV specials in the sets, and then no bonus features. The only series to have any sort of bonus features is the Zyuranger release, and I'll get to that in a second. And it's one that Shout Factory had to record themselves. So, yeah. But, anyway, what next? So I guess let's just get on to talking about the DVDs themselves. Now, in regards to presentation of these, they use the DVD masters from Japan, which are 480i or 480p masters that Toei have from when the shows were originally released on DVD. In my opinion, the shows do not look that bad. They're not in pristine quality, but it's kind of like to me the Dragon boxes for Dragon Ball Z, and GT in the movies. They look fine for what they are, but they could look better. That being said, I don't personally think that these being on DVD really ruins the quality. I remember also Sound Out 12 talking about that, and the price and everything for these individual sets. Now, most Super Sentai seasons are somewhere between 45 and about 51, 52 episodes. It depends on the season, depends on the year, depends on what the writing team wanted to do, depends on how much time they had, and yeah. The only season to be above that, I believe, or series in the Super Sentai franchise to be above that is Go Ranger, which has 80-something episodes, because it ran for about 2 or 3 years. And then, the only season to be below that is Jacka, which had about 30-something episodes, I think. And that was because Jacka wasn't nearly as popular as Go Ranger, whereas Go Ranger was extremely popular. So, yeah, and it kind of I guess, even down in regards to the episode count in a way, between the 2 seasons and everything. But yeah, which will be interesting because Jacka will be the lowest, or the smallest, I think, DVD case when it comes to when Shout Factory can be able to license that and distribute it over here. And then Go Ranger will be the biggest case. It'll probably be about half as big or so as the Mighty Morphin or multi-season sets for Power Rangers and everything. Which, if you don't know, is like that's about. I'm not gonna get the Power Ranger set, but here's an Xbox 360 like DVD case for Batman Arkham Origins. But it's the same exact size. It's a regular DVD case, just in green plastic. So it's about this width times like 6 for Mighty Morphin. And basically what I assume, because a case like this can fit about 4 discs, I believe. And with if you open it in the disc tray, you have 1 disc, 2 disc, 3 discs, and 4. Now these are cases that can hold up to 10 discs. So yeah, and that has, well, G-Ranger has about 5 episodes a disc. The rest of them have about 7 or 8, or 6 to 7 or 8, depending on the season. But yeah, but so basically these would have about 4 or 5 more discs, I assume, to release Go Ranger on DVD, possibly Blu-ray. I'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, and thus it would be a lot bigger, and I assume that they would use 2 different, slightly smaller DVD cases than what are here, or they would use these DVD cases that hold less discs. So yeah, for a total of like probably 15 discs, maybe. But yeah, depends on how they do that. But yeah, where was I going with that? Sorry. So then, yeah, I was talking about episode counts, I believe. So, yeah. And in regards to quality, Toei does have, film masters for, I think, every, or most every, pre-HD season of Super Sentai. They filmed everything on film. And I could easily believe that they have a master film, I think is what it's called, for each of these seasons. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the best example I can have is Star Trek: The Original Series was filmed on film back in the 60s. And when it came time to remaster it for TV airings, for like HD TVs and everything, then a later re-release on, or just release on DVD and Blu-ray and digital and everything, Paramount and CBS remastered the series into HD, and they were easily able to do that, or at least quickly able to do that, because every episode had a master film copy that had all the takes lined up correctly and everything. They just had to recomposite the special effects, I believe. So, yeah. So Toei might have something similar in regards to Super Sentai, where they just have to recomposite any special effects that were added in post-production, which I'll get to, which actually brings up an interesting point I'll talk about in a little bit. But basically a lot of the pre-2000s Super Sentai series, outside of some like limited special effects work, I don't think would be that hard for Toei to maybe sub-license to a company in Japan to remaster every episode into HD. Because pretty much everything for a lot of these shows was done practically, and not a lot of special effects work was involved. And I mean VFX. So, yeah. The only... actually, I'll talk about it now. Since it's probably going to be the next Super Sentai series announced for DVD by Shout Factory, the only pre-HD season, I believe, of Super Sentai to be released on Blu-ray, outside of its movies and like probably specials, is Tokusou Sentai Abba Ranger, the source material to Power Rangers SPD. And the reason for that is it was released on Blu-ray in 2014, because it also had the 10 Years Later movie coming out. But it wasn't properly remastered into HD. It was upscaled to 1080p from the original 480i masters. And while upscaling isn't necessarily that bad, at the same time, it's just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't know. It's really stupid. You might as well have just done standard def on Blu-ray, which, granted, wasn't a thing at the time, I think, but yeah. But it was a way to re-release the show on Blu-ray and tout it as an HD remaster, but it's not at the same time. It's really stupid. So yeah. So then, so that is as far as I can tell, that is the only pre-HD season of Super Sentai released on Blu-ray at all. And when I expect Shout Factory to not release it on SD on Blu-ray. What I expect them to do is just release it on DVD. Which is fine. It's not a series that's in HD. So yeah, Shout Factory doesn't do standard def on Blu-ray at this point in time, so yeah. But yeah, so I personally don't think that most of these seasons are bad looking when it comes to the masters on these DVDs. Mainly because these are like I said, these are the masters that are on the Japanese DVDs. They're just converted to NTSC. However, there is one exception to this, and I talked about it, I think, in my unboxing of this. Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, the source material to Power Rangers Time Force. This series looks terrible. I don't know what the fuck happened in regards to the masters of this show. The Sentai footage used for Power Rangers Time Force still holds up pretty well in regards to those episodes of that show. But the Sentai footage here looks like bad VHS rips from when this show aired in 2000. Like off-air VHS rips from when it aired on TV. And I have no idea as to why it looks as bad as it does. I've seen preview clips. I don't know why it looks as bad as it does, but it looks bad from the preview clips I've seen. And it's the same on the Japanese DVDs. Toei did not give Shout Factory Borked Masters for these. I don't believe they've ever given them Borked Masters for any of these sets. So the thing I don't understand is just why Time Ranger looks so bad. And I wish they would give that a remaster, because that series, I think, is the one in Sentai's history that needs it the most of the pre-HD seasons. But yeah. So yeah, a lot of the CGI, VFX series of these could easily get an HD remaster. It's just that, is Toei going to want to, and are they going to want to spend the money? Because Toei are notoriously cheap, and they charge like a premium for a lot of their shit. So, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, Dragon Ball fans for the longest time have wanted HD remasters of at least Dragon Ball Z, but then also the original Dragon Ball, the movies, and TV specials, and probably a subset of fans do want an HD remaster for GT. Funimation have been the only ones to actually produce any kind of remastering work for Dragon Ball Z, besides Toei's 2003 DVDs that were that were the masters used for the Dragon boxes with Pony Canyon, and their remasters always look terrible outside of the level sets, which were actually done with care by people who knew what they were doing and didn't want to bullshit people. Ugh. But yeah, and Toei just didn't bother. Then they produced Dragon Ball Z Kai, which was an actual HD remaster and, like, slight recoloring and, in some cases, reframing and redrawing of that show, of Z, into HD, minus most of the filler. And yeah, and then you had Dragon Ball Z Kai, the final chapters, which minus a few things, they definitely... That was definitely just more of a straight remaster than a reworking of the original visuals, like Kai, or like the first 98 episodes were. And that was... The first 98 episodes were sub-licensed to Q-Tech, while Toei did an in-house job for the final chapters. I don't know why they just didn't contract Q-Tech to do it, but whatever. Anyways, so onto these DVDs themselves, the products themselves. So first, in 2015, in February of 2015, we got Kyoryu Sentai's Zyuranger on DVD, and this was actually really cool. A lot of people were excited and hyped and everything for it, and however, we didn't know if this was just going to be a one-off or if it was going to start something new. And the reason for that is I don't even think Shout Factory knew. I'm pretty sure that they just that they just licensed Zyuranger with the hope of it selling decently enough because they wanted another Power Rangers related product to be able to put on store shelves and everything, and there would be enough interest in at least Zyuranger because of the Mighty Morphin connection. And all of the, like, trivia facts behind it and everything, that it would sell well. And it seems to have sold very well. But yeah. So, just talking about the oddities with this DVD set. Zyuranger, for this DVD set, is presented a little weirdly. You might have already noticed it. The packaging. And I've pointed this out in the original unboxing video I did for this. I've pointed this out in several other places like Twitter and other YouTube videos and stuff like that. Zyuranger is just referred to as Zyuranger on the set. Whereas you look at Gosei Sentai Dairanger on, and the entire name is just there. It is the same on the spines. Yeah. So basically what happened, I think, is Shout Factory didn't quite know how to how to properly market certain aspects of this series or this franchise at first. Because on the discs themselves for the subtitles, they didn't just transliterate the name. What they did is they basically took an approach that's similar to Overtime. And what happened is they translated the first few words of the name. Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, when fully translated as a name, technically translates to Dinosaur Squadron Beast Ranger. And because the Zyuranger is just Beast Ranger. Which is the full name, but they weren't gonna just, have the full name translated. So, on the discs for these, Zyuranger is referred to as Dinosaur Squadron Zyuranger. And there's positives and negatives to that. For one, you're translating the name fully for an audience that doesn't know what those words mean in Japanese, which is fine. On the other, you're also trying to market this to Super Sentai fans. A lot of them, most likely though, prefer when the Sentai names are left untranslated, because of the fact that the show's name is said in it. And oftentimes, it's better to just leave that, untranslated for the sake of, ease of finding it. So yeah, so I don't... It's an oddity, but it's an understandable one. So yeah. But even then, on the packaging itself, they do not refer to it even as Dinosaur Squadron Zyuranger. They just have Zyuranger. Then on top of that, they have it spelled how Toei spells it, rather than having it spelled in the way that it's pronounced. But granted, I assume that's just a Toei thing that they wanted them to do, so who knows. Although they might have also been looking on the Ranger Wiki and Wikipedia and whatever, or to fan subs to see what they could, or what they should do to be familiar to people who've already seen the show and are looking to get the DVD set. So yeah, because there were fan subs of most of these shows, I believe, at some point or another, with different fan sub groups, as well as like bootleg releases and everything. So yeah. Then there's the cover, which changes in regards to variation as it goes on. It's not necessarily completely consistent across the board, but the reason for that is that Shout Factory has to work with the materials Toei gives them. This is the same for a lot of other companies that license Toei products, and just any products really from companies in Japan. They have to work with whatever materials the licensors give them for official releases. Unless if they get stuff done for themselves. Like they commission it. And are able to commission it through the licensors. So yeah, it's the same with Funimation, for instance, now Crunchyroll, for One Piece. They have to use, for like the collection sets, which I have. If you've not seen those unboxings, go see them. The collection sets, they have to use official artwork that they are given by Toei. And, yeah. Same with, like, Dragon Ball and everything. They have to use official artwork given to them by Toei. Unless if they get it commissioned from an artist. And in some cases, I think that they have gotten stuff commissioned, but from the artists at Toei. Which is fine. But, yeah. But, anyways. Yeah. But on Zyuranger and then Die Ranger, you have the actors outside of their main Ranger suits, which Super Sentai does not, unlike Power Rangers, Super Sentai does not do a lot of, like, I think, photo shoots or really even scenes in episodes, unless if it's like a special moment where it's like a one-off, with the main actors in their Ranger suits. I don't know why this is, but they don't care to do that. Yeah, I don't know, it makes no sense to me. The only season to really do that for an extended period of time, I believe, is Go Busters, and that's mainly because they were taking influence from Power Rangers. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so I don't necessarily blame Shout Factory for not having the materials to be able to do that on the majority of these releases, because Toei most likely does not have those. And I doubt that they're just going to try and Photoshop the actors' faces onto the bodies of the suit actors, though that would be interesting. But however, when it comes to O-Ranger, Toei did have pictures of the actors in their suits from a photo shoot back in the 90s that they could use, so who really knows. Then they have to design backgrounds as well, so they used what looks like a screenshot or maybe just a picture that Toei had in their vaults, I believe, of where the Zyurangers come from, or were locked away for millions of years. So, yeah. So we have that. Then we get to the back, which is fine. Every set has, before Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, there was Super Sentai. They changed it from Super Sentai Zyuranger to just Super Sentai on future releases, which is good. And then that comes to the marketing of this set. On various sites, I'm assuming their own website, but then also Amazon and other sites, they listed this as Super Sentai Zyuranger, and then I think also added the Power Rangers name for brand consistency, which is whatever. The Power Rangers part I have no problem with, because that's just a marketing tactic. Super Sentai Zyuranger, though, is a misnomer. While it is the franchise name and then the specific series name, it is not the name of the full series itself. That's Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. If they had just translated the full name and put it on the set, I wouldn't have a problem. If they had just left the name untranslated and just transliterated it, I wouldn't have a problem. But this is just probably the biggest weirdness in regards to this. You know, it's one word off from being the actual name of the series. It's really fucking stupid. It's not like Power Rangers where you can just do Power Rangers this. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And that is the name of the brand as well, and the franchise. Super Sentai doesn't operate like that. And it's not like Kamen Rider either, or Ultraman, you know. It just, I don't know. It's just the way that Toei does these things. And it's not like I have a problem with it. It's just that that's not how this franchise generally does this thing. Or does these things. So, yeah. But then, the bonus feature is Power Progenitors, Super Sentai Zyuranger, Power Morphicon 2014 panel, which is a panel with the guy who played Geki in this series. Forget his name, I'm sorry. The Red Ranger at Power Morphicon 2014, which was the first Power Morphicon to feature Sentai actors at all, meeting the international fans, which is nice. And that's a panel with him, a translator, and I believe the two suit actors that worked on both Zyuranger and Power Rangers, I believe. Or maybe just Power Rangers. For the Red Ranger and the Green Ranger. For Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I assume as well maybe the suit actors for Zyuranger as well, but I don't know. I have to refresh my memory on that. But anyways, yeah, and they do have subtitles, I believe, for when the guy speaks or the people speak Japanese rather than speaking through the translator. And yeah, this was a thing that Shout Factory filmed themselves. After I believe they had announced that they had Zyuranger licensed. And that was actually a nice marketing thing and a nice just extra that they included on the disc, you know. And I believe it's on the last disc of the set, but yeah. So then another kind of oddity for the first few of these sets, the first like 3 or so, I think. Yeah, the first 3 is that all 3 of these series, I believe, for Zyuranger to Kaku Ranger have about 50 episodes. And thus they have 10 discs because they only have 5 episodes a disc rather than having like 7. Which don't go over 7, but granted also, Shout Factory did 10 episodes a disc when it came to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So yeah. But yeah, you have about 5 episodes per disc. Which, for compression, is not necessarily that bad. You go over a certain amount, and you have to compress the video files down. And I believe the audio as well, and other things. So in regards to preservation of quality, that's not necessarily that bad, and I think it also kind of matches the DVD releases in Japan. However, these are not portings of the programming for the Japanese DVDs just translated into English or anything. It's the episode masters that Toei gave them, subtitles, and everything put onto new discs programmed by the people at Shout Factory. So, I don't quite understand why there wasn't about 6 or 7 episodes per disc, and they just had about 8 discs. but I think they were probably going for, like, intervals of 5, is my assumption. Where it was 5 episodes on 10 discs for the full 50-episode series, plus the bonus feature that they had. Yeah, I don't know. I think also one thing that they could do for that they could have done for a bonus feature was, like, if they had interviewed Geki's actor while he was at Power Morphicon, after the panel, or after one of the days of Power Morphicon, where they had prepared questions for him, or had him, like, recap his time on Super Sentai and what Super Sentai means to him and stuff. Basically similar to the bonus features that they had for the various Power Ranger sets, where they got interviews from a lot of the actors from the various Power Ranger seasons, when they were either at Power Morphicon or even in between Power Morphicon, where they had them sit in a room and talk about their time on the series and recap certain things, tell some funny stories and other stuff. Funnily enough, there was also a bonus feature like that on the Power Rangers Super Mega Force Legendary Battle DVD, which I felt like they probably just ripped off from Shout Factory, because it was done in the same style, and probably was filmed by the same people, if I'm being completely honest. The people that probably at Saban. But yeah. But alas, we didn't get something like that. I think that would have been really cool if they were able to do it. But no, just the panel, which is fine. Since that probably does the same job anyways, because, yeah. But yeah, and the thing about the panel is, as well, it looks like it was shot with, like, a regular, like, 1080p camera, and then downscaled to, like, 480p, which is fine. But there's no, like, multiple angles, there's no cutting around certain things, and then subtitling stuff, and then whatever. It's just about an hour panel that doesn't have any cuts or alternate camera angles. And yeah, you would think they would have at least, like, 3 cameras, where one is just, like, in the middle of the room, then 2 on the sides for different angles, but nope. But whatever. It's not, I rag on it, but it's not that bad of a special feature. And if you want to have a bit of a look into the mind of the actor who played Geki, you got it. So yeah, and then the minds of the actors who played some of the stunt people, or played the suit act, or were in the suits. So yeah. So then, Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger. This is a release that definitely, course corrects a few things, and it's definitely a bit of a response to Zyuranger in regards to some of the criticism, or, like, mainly constructive criticism that they got for this set. Some people complained that the subtitles for Zyuranger were a bit plain. I've watched several episodes of Zyuranger. I've watched, like, at least the first 6. Subtitles are fine from what I remember. Maybe they're a little bit dry, but other than that, it's like, the Japanese language is kind of like that, from what I've heard. So it's like, I don't know what people expected. You know, I think people are probably more used to, like, subtitles like TV Nihon, and TV Nihon isn't really that good of a subtitling group. Like, their subtitles, from what I can tell, are accurate and fine, but it's just like, at the same time, they throw in more swear words and obscenities than were originally in the scripts, and they leave certain words untranslated for some reason, and it's really stupid. I don't know. I'm glad for these releases, because at the very least they translate words and phrases that they should, rather than just assuming people know them or will look them up. That's just annoying. Like, you go to subtitles for a thing that's in a foreign language so that you can understand it. You can understand the dialogue and whatever the fuck else is going on and being said. I don't know. But yeah, from what I can tell, Shout Factory, I don't think we know the company. But Shout Factory, Brian Ward, I believe, from Shout Factory, has said that they license out the subtitling for these sets to a company that is specifically, like, that's their job to do. To watch foreign material and translate it into English. I very much doubt Toei has any copies of the original scripts that they could use, so I assume what they do is they have the translators listen to the audio as they watch the episodes, and they write down what they hear is being said, and then they translate them roughly into English. Then they have script editors for the subtitling, work out wordings and stuff like that, so that it comes across as okay and, like, more natural sounding. Some of these, I've heard complaints about that not being the case, but generally that's what they do. So yeah. But I chalk those up more to typos and probably being a little bit rushed. But yeah. So then we got Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger. And like I said, a few things definitely were responses to G-Ranger. Not enough, though. For some reason, on the first bunch of these sets, looks like up until O-Ranger, they did not use the original logos, it seems, for these series, for the first 4 sets, from G-Ranger to O-Ranger, and they just used a blue text version of the logos. Actually, Kaku Ranger looks fine. But yeah. It just, I don't know, it looks kind of weird when you actually look at it, because these are not the logos shown even in the, like, title sequences of these shows. But yeah. So, first up, transliterating the series name instead of translating it directly. Oddly enough, Toei included not only the series preview that was technically at the end of Jetman, I believe, in this, before the first episode plays, if you were to play the first disc. But they also included the next series preview of Dai Ranger. In this set, Dai Ranger's name was not translated. It was transliterated. And if you don't know what that means, it means just basically writing down in the different lettering of the alternate language the word that's being said, rather than translating it into what it means in the other language. So, yeah, so they just transliterated the name, I believe after getting feedback of people saying, hey, you don't have to translate the name, it's fine, you know, we actually prefer when you don't translate the names. So yeah, then, like I said, it's not referred to as Super Sentai Dai Ranger. It was referred to as, I think, Super Sentai Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger on various websites, which is good. And then I think there were a few things that they did that were definitely in response to some of this stuff. Like, the Dai Rangers here, all 6 of them are on the front. There are only, like, 3 sets, I believe, that have all of the team, because most of the time, especially when it's, like, a team of 6, there's only the main 5. I don't understand why. But, whatever. But anyways. So, yeah, so they have all 6 of the Rangers on the front, which is fine. They have them in their civilian forms, which, again, is fine. You don't want to... Although, granted, this would have been the one early on that I would have liked to have seen the Dai Ranger suits front and center. But, granted, they're right there in the screenshots. But at the same time, I would have liked to have seen them. But this also included the 6th Ranger, which is Ko, who played the Kiba Ranger. And it's interesting that they did that. So they clearly got the materials from Toei for, like, pictures from back in the 90s when they shot the show and everything for this stuff. So that's actually really cool. The one thing that's weird, though, the Super Sentai logo here is yellow, and this was actually pointed out on Twitter to someone who posted a picture of all 14 of these sets on their shelf, and someone pointed it out in a response to them. Die Ranger is the only Super Sentai series thus far to have an alternate color logo than every other set. Every other set has this red logo, although it's a little bit different from the one on G-Ranger. But yeah, from Kaku Ranger on, every set would use the same red logo, as opposed to having the logo be different colors. And G-Ranger had to be 2 different colors, where it started off red on the top and then shifted to more of a blue hue, blue or like a bluish red, as you go down, which is whatever. And then Die Ranger has a similar thing where it starts off yellow, then goes on into a more darker yellow. Yeah, I don't know. But I do also like the coloring of these as well, because, I don't know, the color balance for G-Ranger, I don't know, it just doesn't look great to me. All of the blue, I think it has to do with all the blue and greens on it, all the different, like, blues, greens, some purples, grays, and stuff like that. I don't really like the color scheme of G-Ranger's cover, to be completely honest. And then the back, just in terms of color, mainly because they're using, I believe, a publicity photo right here of these, or of the main 5 Rangers. It really just looks better to my eyes. I don't know. I've never really liked the coloring of the front of G-Ranger's case. But this, I think, strikes a better balance because it has contrasting colors. You have blue for the background right here, the varying shades of blue. Then you have, like, orange, and you have the yellow logo and everything for Super Sentai. And I think that that's actually better as a color contrast. And then the back is consistent with it. Except the background here is more of like a purplish blue. But yeah, like an indigo or something like that. But yeah, and then you have all 6 of the Rangers in their civilian forms and everything. Now this set still has 10 discs for 5 episodes each, which is whatever. And the thing about it as well is, I remember Brian Ward, I think, putting out a tweet at the time where they were still producing the subtitles for this set after they announced they had the license, to have people point them towards fan subs that they liked of this show or any other Super Sentai series so they could punch up the scripts, as they said. So I don't necessarily... I've watched the first several episodes or so. I don't necessarily know how much they really punched up the scripts for the subtitles, but the subtitles are fine from what I can tell. Something as well for these 3 sets, I forgot to mention. The subtitles are piss yellow. That is not that good. I don't like yellow subtitles. This is a thing that has gradually gone away, is yellow subtitles on DVDs. The trend of the industry has gone more towards white subtitles, white closed captions, and whatever, on the discs, both on DVD, Blu-ray, and digital. I think because white looks more professional, and it kind of just blends better, you know? If you have white text with, like, black bordering around the letters and everything, or a drop shadow or something to distinguish it from the background, especially when if there's like pure white on the background that's the same color as the text, that is fine. But these 3 sets have yellow subtitles. And the yellow subtitles do not look professional to me. They look disgusting to me, and which is why I say they're piss yellow. And then the subtitles as well, I don't know, they just look weird and out of place, and it makes these kind of come off as bootleggish. Even though these aren't bootlegs, these are an official product. I really do wish that Shout Factory would re-release these 3 sets with better subtitles for G-Ranger. Like, change the scripts for the G-Ranger subs to have them say Kyoryu Sentai G-Ranger, redesign the packaging to say Kyoryu Sentai G-Ranger, maybe alter the color scheme a little bit on the front, and then change the subtitles on all 3 of these to white instead of yellow. I remember hearing someone saying that, like, I think on your computer, with, like, a DVD player that you're using, like a program, you can change the color of the subtitles. I don't know how true that is. And it just seems like a really stupid workaround for something that should just be done by the people who program the discs. I don't know. But, yeah. But other than that, I really have nothing to say, or nothing bad to say about Die Ranger's release. It's just Zyuranger's release, but better. In a lot of ways. Some things are still carried over, which is whatever. Because again, they were getting used to releasing these. And because they had never really done anything like this before. Shout Factory before like 2014 was not primarily a licensor of like any Japanese stuff outside of like, I think, kaiju stuff. I think, aren't they the ones to release the Godzilla films and whatever? But yeah, just stuff like that. So while they didn't not necessarily not have like experience licensing and releasing Japanese material, they weren't a company that's specialized in it at all. So yeah. So basically, yeah, just minor improvements overall to the presentation that really go a long way. You know, the only bad thing I have to say is the color of the subtitles, from what I've seen of this set. But I need to watch more of it, but I don't think the rest of it would be. If, like, the first several episodes are any indication, it's not bad. So, yeah. So then we have Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, which I have also seen the first several episodes of or so. Again, it's just like Die Ranger in regards to the presentation and everything on the discs, in regards to the content and everything. But it is not, but it's just the new show and everything. Here, I think that they have an interesting way of going about things. They have the colors be a nice contrast of like green, blue, and red. I honestly really like this when they have like a contrast of colors, and the colors work against each other, and they don't just have an oversaturation of one color or various hues of one color. So, yeah. And they have the Kaku Ranger suits, which is fine in my opinion, because these suits were adapted into Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, which did get its own disc in the Shout Factory Mighty Morphin sets, with all 10 episodes on the disc. But it is not in its own set. So, yeah, it's included in the Mighty Morphin Season 3 set because it's technically a part of that season. So, yeah. So, outside of if anyone ever saw those episodes or any anniversary episodes that include them, you don't readily know the Kaku Rangers. And so I think that having these guys on the front in just their costumes is fine. But yeah, still 10 discs for 5 episodes each, but at the same time, it's still fine. Like, yeah, and everything on these discs, from what I can tell, it's just fine. Like, it's as it should be. So, yeah. So, basically, Zyuranger and Die Ranger were licensed and released for 2015 releases. Zyuranger was released in February, I believe, and Die Ranger was released, I think, in November. Kaku Ranger was released in, like, early 2016. I think it was, like, March or something like that. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering. Somewhere around there. So yeah. So then we had a change up with O-Ranger. And several new things were introduced for this. Obviously not the logo, because they went back to having just a plain logo with the Japanese text and everything. But, like I said before, you had the actors' faces with the Sentai suits for the Ranger forms, which is actually pretty nice. And again, I wish other sets got this treatment, but again, they have to work with the materials Toei has, so I don't blame them. But 8 discs instead of 10. Meaning, they have about 6 episodes a disc for 48 episodes, which is nice. And consistently, Shout Factory will keep the 8-disc thing for even the series that are 50 episodes. So, yeah. Honestly, it's just common sense, I think, to like save money on producing the discs and then save on materials for like other things that those discs could be used for and other things. You know, it's just better. You can, as long as you don't overly stuff the discs, the compression won't be a factor in regards to enjoyment of these things. So yeah, and just basically, yeah. Again, no specials or movies, but yeah. So we get to Gekiso Sentai Car Ranger, and this starts the trend, or this more starts the trend, although Kaku Ranger definitely had this first, I believe. Although Kaku Ranger, it looks like just a plain logo in different colors, which I don't necessarily know if that's the actual. I need to look up if that's the actual Kaku Ranger logo from the show, but yeah. Car Ranger starts the tradition of having the Super Sentai, or the series logo, right there as it's presented in the show, which is nice. So yeah, and again, not really anything to complain about. Then we have Mega Ranger, which is pretty consistent, and this is where we get more consistency with these releases going forwards from O-Ranger onwards. So yeah, and it's just really cool. So it's good that we have that. Ginga Man, from what I understand, some of the discs have some mistimings and typos. There's not a lot of them, but some people have noted them for some of the episodes. I don't know why this was, and my assumption is Shout Factory has taken care to try and not rush things and make sure that they get those things right for future sets. Because I think after this, or maybe it's Go-Go 5, I haven't really heard any bad things about the subtitles afterwards. So my assumption is Shout Factory got a handle on making sure that their people aren't rushed when putting the stuff on the discs and programming everything. So yeah. And the cool thing about the Ginga Men is that they have their special weapons, these cannons, which is actually really cool. I like that. And they have the forest background, which most of these Super Sentai releases up until this point have all these kind of plain backgrounds, but they have the forest background, which is actually pretty nice. It looks like it's from the show, but it could be just a stock Japanese forest. I don't know. But yeah, and it's just really cool. So yeah, again, consistency. I like consistency across releases of this stuff. So yeah. So we have Go-Go 5, which again, nothing to complain about, really. And again, just 8 discs, 50 episodes, all good. Time Ranger, like I said, the episode masters are terrible, from what I can tell. They just genuinely look like they're 240p as opposed to 480. I don't understand. And I think this was the first series to really use CGI. The other series, if they used any VFX, were green screen and stuff. I know if you've ever seen Lightspeed Rescue, the series that this was adapted into for Go-Go 5, they definitely had green screen effects for some of the mech stuff. Which, when you have a flying train, it makes sense. But yeah, Time Ranger, I think, was the first series to use CGI. Although the morphing sequences also or henshin sequences also just use VFX, I believe, but to a lesser extent. Time Ranger used more CGI. I remember it. I think this was the first series to fully use CGI, as they would go on to use in future seasons. If Time Force is any indication from the Sentai footage they used, on top of the green screen work. So I understand if Toei weren't to give this an HD remaster, because they would have to remaster the VFX, and that might be too costly for them. But at the same time, they could try and upscale and color correct as best they can the VFX work from the original, or from these masters, and try to upscale it as best they can. But that would also just look probably jarring with the rest of the footage, which would look in pristine quality from the film that they have for this shit. So I don't know. But yeah. And again, second release, I believe, of any of these shows to have all 6 Rangers on the front. But instead of, like, with Die Ranger, where the Rangers were in their civilian forms, these are the suited forms. Which I'm completely fine with, honestly. Because, as far as I know, in regards to Time Force, the series that this was adapted into for Power Rangers, they kept pretty closely to what Time Ranger did. And the 6th Ranger is definitely a big part of the show, so it makes sense. Really surprised, though, that they didn't put the 6th Ranger on the front of Jew Ranger, considering the biggest thing about him is that his story arc is that he gets cursed, where if he goes outside of the cave that he was in, he dies after a while if he stays out too long, and the candle that is linked to his life goes down. But yeah. But it makes total sense as to why that is. Why they chose to use yellow on this set, I don't exactly know. I would think that they would maybe use, like, a red. But granted, also Go-Go 5 used red, so maybe that was that for a contrast? I don't know, but you'd think they would, like, use red or something, or even green, or whatever. Because the background here is blue. I think a nice green or a red would be really good for this color. But yeah. Considering, 2 Red Rangers, and part of the conflict is with the fact that, like, the fact that they are Red Rangers. But yeah. And this one has 51 episodes on 8 discs, which means one of the discs has, like, 7 episodes, I believe. So, yeah, or maybe one of them has 8. Then we get Gal Ranger, and this is something actually, I forgot to mention this. From 2015, I forgot to mention this. I'm an idiot. From 2015 to 2017. So for the first 3 years that we got these releases, we got the first 6 seasons here release, from Jew Ranger to Mega Ranger. 2 a year. 2 a year. Yeah. Then afterwards, we got more. We got, in 2018, we got 3 seasons released, which were Go-Go 5, Time Ranger, Gal Ranger, which this was released in 2018, or am I misremembering this? I don't think I am. Yeah, no. Ginga Man. That was the other one. Or am I misremembering? It might have only been... No, I'm pretty sure it was 5. Right, I forgot. So, and I'll get to that in a second. When it comes to, these releases, we got 5 released in 2018. And oddly enough, Gal Ranger was released in 2018, which is the 25th anniversary of Power Rangers. This is the 25th season of Super Sentai, which I thought was fun. I thought that was funny. It's completely unintentional, but I thought it was funny. So, yeah, and this was adapted into the 10th season of Power Rangers. So, yeah. Which, oddly enough, premiered during the 9th year. Both Power Rangers and Super Sentai have a thing where, like, technically the season that's, like, it ends in 5s and 0s, I believe come right before the actual, like, anniversary years. So, yeah. Yeah, so we got Gal Ranger right here, which is actually really cool. And I think that the background, very few Super Sentai seasons have really good backgrounds that represent, like, the stuff in the shows, in my opinion. Quite as effectively as stuff like Gal Ranger does. I think it's Go-Go 5 that also has it. I think some of the others do, I think, as well. But Gal Ranger has the Earth in the background and space, and I think that works pretty well if I know stuff about Super Sentai in regards to how Power Rangers adapt this stuff. Power Rangers adapted Gal Ranger pretty faithfully, pretty closely, which is part of what's not that great about it. But they have all the Earth stuff because it's their mission to protect the Earth from the orgs. So, yeah. We just basically have that. So, yeah, and this has 51 episodes on 8 discs. So, yeah. That's interesting. So, I think because of the shots that they had on the front, I didn't even notice this before. On the front, they have the Yellow Ranger in that pose. On the back, they have the Blue Ranger in that pose. It's funny. Nowhere on this, though, do they have the 6th Ranger, which is interesting. Not even in screenshots from some of the episodes. But yeah. So we have that. And I like, actually, the blue color scheme on this. It's a lot better than what G-Ranger had, because for one, it doesn't have green. It doesn't have, like, weird, like, mixing of colors like G-Ranger does. It's primarily focused on blue, but it also chooses the right, like, hues of blue to use against each other. Because you have the blue background of the Earth, and the blue's going into space with the black and everything. Then you have the lighter, like, sky blue that's used for the background of the text and pictures here. Or screenshots. And that's actually, in my opinion, the way to do it. Where you don't have all these contrasting colors and just really kind of ugly look to it that isn't that appealing. And I know that the covers aren't the reason I or any other people buy these things, but it's just something that I have to note. So yeah. So then, in 2018, I believe before Gal Ranger, we got a surprise. We got a nice surprise with Chojin Sentai Jetman, which is the series that premiered right before G-Ranger. It's the 15th series. G-Ranger is the 16th. So, yeah, this was a bit out of nowhere. Now, Brian Ward and other people from Shout Factory said before they licensed Jetman, we would love to be able to license stuff from before G-Ranger, as long as these things keep selling. We'll consider it in the future. And in the year where they released 5 different Sentai seasons over the course of it, every like 2 to 3 months or so, maybe 4, they licensed and released Jetman, which is one of the more beloved Super Sentais, and has a lot of fans, especially overseas. The thing about it is, Fiveman, the series before it, and I think a few seasons before it as well, were on like a decline in regards to popularity and reception, and even I think toy sales to a degree. So Toei gave them one more series to like just send off Super Sentai and everything. And so the writers just did whatever they wanted. And they made a more self-serious and character and story-driven series with Jetman, and it revives a lot of interest in Super Sentai from, like, because, like, the more mature and involved storyline and characters appealed to older fans, while whatever was going on for, like, the action in the episodes and everything appealed to kids and everything, and it was good. A similar story can be told with Car Ranger, but Car Ranger is more comedic in tone. It is definitely one of the more funny Super Sentai series from what I can tell. And it definitely does not take itself that seriously from what I can tell. It's like Monty Python-esque in a way, in regards to the type of comedy that it uses. And yeah, and that was after O Ranger wasn't that great, from what I know. And then also there was, like, waning interest in Super Sentai, so they, on top of, like, the tragedy that happened in the Tokyo subways with the bombings and everything from a terrorist group, they, which did impact the writing of Abba Ranger, unfortunately, in the series' direction from what it originally wanted to do. They then, like, decided to do a series that was just more comedic in tone and just generally entertaining. So, yeah. Whereas Power Rangers, because of, like, waning popularity in Power Rangers, especially after Turbo was a bad adaptation of Car Ranger, you know, they adapted Mega Ranger into In Space, and In Space revived the franchise, revived interest, got more viewing figures and more toy sales, I believe, as well. So yeah, leading them to adapt Ginga Man into that. So yeah, so Jetman has a really good reputation overseas, mainly because of that, but then also a lot of people who check out Super Sentai after Jetman got subtitled watched Jetman through fan subs, and it got a good word of mouth over here. And it's one of the more fondly remembered and well-reviewed in the Western fan base, I believe, of Super Sentai ever. It's one of the more popular, definitely 80s series. This was in 1989, I believe. Or no, this was 1991, sorry. I don't know what math I'm doing. But yeah, because G-Ranger was 1992. But yeah, and a lot of people like Jetman, and it's from what I can tell, it's not hard to see why. Also, this series took inspiration from Gatchaman. I need to get the Blu-ray release, but they only released it in a limited edition set that I did not buy at the time. I really wish that they would re-release it in a normal set, but I don't know if they're going to, because I want to check that out. But yeah, they took inspiration from Gatchaman. You can tell because of the bird themes and everything with the Ranger suits. And yeah, and I honestly can't wait to watch this because this has got a good reputation behind it, and I want to see where it goes. So we had that, and this was just definitely a pleasant surprise because it opened the floodgates and set the precedent that Shout Factory can license pre-G-Ranger Super Sentai series. And people were wondering, well, where are we going to get more? Because Jetman, at the very least, was going to do, from what I can tell, pretty well because of good word of mouth, as well as people who already liked it buying the official DVD set. So, yeah. It just is just interesting to go on. But then, in early 2019, I think it was March, we got Ninpu Sentai Hurricaneer, the source material to Power Rangers Ninja Storm, which interestingly has all 5 of the Rangers. The Power Rangers set has only the first 3, but whatever. But yeah, and I like the color contrast here as well. The nice, like, different hues of orange. It helps that the background's not busy as well. It's just a simple design, and I like it. So yeah, they had a run of like 51 episodes as well, for each series. But yeah, so in early 2019, after this released, Bruno from MMPR Toys got, or he teased GQ Sentai Fiveman, and he got the official, like, DVD cover image from Shout Factory itself, or themselves, because, you know, he has contacts at Shout Factory. I guess I'll just put this right there. Actually, I'll keep that there for now. And, yeah. Unfortunately, though, and they let him just tease it. Unfortunately, though, there was some problems. In 2018, Hasbro, well, 2017 actually, I believe, Hasbro had bought, or Saban terminated their contract with Bandai, or just not renewed it, with Bandai America for Power Ranger toys and everything, and merchandise. And they instead decided to go with Hasbro. Now, there are probably multiple reasons for this that we don't even know. But if it were my guess, I would assume that they took in feedback from fans and everything in regards to the toys. And generally, Bandai America got really lazy over the years. And they just seemed to put in less effort for most things over time. And it showed in the toys and everything. For both, like, I think kids and the adult collectors. But yeah, so they teamed up with Hasbro, and in 2018, Hasbro became the official toy manufacturer and merchandise manufacturer, I guess, of Power Rangers. As a result, and I'll get to that in a second, actually, now that's something I realized, with it being Hurricane that happened with, they basically, Hasbro, was like, they produced the toys and everything, and they helped produce Beast Morphers, which premiered in 2018. However, in like mid or late 2018, Hasbro bought out the Power Rangers franchise from Saban for, I think, several million dollars. Or maybe it was like tens of millions of dollars. I can't remember the exact figure. But it was millions of dollars because they wanted to own the Power Rangers franchise outright, and they wanted to do more things with it than I think Saban could and everything, just based on the model that they were going with. So, yeah. So, showing this with Abba Ranger. You can see the Saban Brands logo right there, which had been on all these Sentai DVDs since G-Ranger in 2015. Here, however, you see the Hasbro logo instead, because Hasbro owned the Power Rangers franchise at the time. Oh my god. Just trying to make sure these don't fall off the fucking bed. Anyways. So yeah. So it hasn't, as far as I know, it hasn't been stated exactly what the holdup was. And this is where I have to respond to Sound Out 12 again. But the most likely reason is Hasbro. Now, why is this? Basically, if we do a little bit of deductive reasoning, it is more than likely that Hasbro was the reason why Fiveman got delayed. Basically, in 2018 to 2019, into 2020 and 2021, Hasbro was restructuring some things. In regards to that, they bought a company known as Entertainment One. Or is it Entertainment One? Yeah. Or E1. And we're using them to restructure how they distribute their stuff. That's their distribution wing for their various TV shows and movies for their products. And on top of that, they were also starting to produce more Power Rangers merchandise with stuff like the Lightning figure, or the Lightning collection stuff, and new stuff for Beast Morphers, and eventually Dino Fury, and whatever. You know. Then also COVID shit happened, I think, and then, yeah. And then stuff happening with the distribution of Power Rangers. Slowly, Power Rangers was taken off of Netflix, I think in 2020 or 2021. Now Power Rangers has been slowly uploaded to the official Power Rangers YouTube channel for free viewing with ads. On YouTube. I don't know why it was taken off of Netflix exactly, but as a result, as each season has been uploaded to the YouTube channel, they've also removed digital downloads from digital storefronts like iTunes and whatever. I don't know why exactly I don't know why exactly they do that, considering that those are also, like, not compressed, or not too terribly compressed versions of the episodes on those, and people would like to be able to download and watch them offline, but whatever. The Shout Factory DVDs are still in circulation. The Lionsgate DVDs, and I think one Blu-ray set for Super Samurai, I could be wrong, are still in circulation, I believe, for every series from Samurai to Ninja Steel, Super Ninja Steel. But Beast Morphers has yet to receive a DVD release at the very least, at least here in the States. I think also elsewhere. Has not received a digital release anywhere but Netflix. And then also Ninja Steel. And if I said Ninja Steel for Beast Morphers, I meant Beast Morphers. Then Ninja Steel aired its first half on Nickelodeon. The first half also came out on Netflix. Then later in the year, Hasbro terminated the contract with Nickelodeon before it was technically supposed to expire. And they premiered the rest of Ninja Steel Season 1 on Netflix. And then Netflix premiered Season 2 in 2 halves, I believe, and are going to next year. They did that this year, and then next year they're going to premiere, I think it's a 10-episode season of Cosmic Fury. Wait, did I say Ninja Steel? I meant Dino Fury. What is wrong with my brain? But yeah, Dino Fury is what I meant. And then, yeah, next year is when they're going to release Cosmic Fury. And beyond that, we don't know necessarily what they're doing, but they're probably coming up with stuff at Hasbro and Netflix to do. So, yeah, and I think also buying E1 and restructuring their distribution of various things also fucked with their other stuff that they own, but also Super Sentai. And my assumption is that, as a result, they told Hasbro to hold off on releasing Fiveman and then not license more Super Sentai material for the next 3.5 years. Yeah. I'm not kidding. That is my assumption based on the evidence that we have. This has not been said by anyone, but it would not surprise me if anyone from Shout Factory or Hasbro at any point in the near future admits to that. Or admits to something similar. Because here's the thing. If they had this cover basically ready to go and gave it to Bruno from MPR Toys to tease it in a video, where he also talked about the Blu-ray release of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, I believe, that was also coming out from Shout Factory at the time, logic stands that they had the license to Fiveman way back in 2019. And they wouldn't have designed this cover if they didn't get the appropriate materials from Toei. Meaning a PNG of the logo, although they could have found that online, and PNGs of the cast in their suits. As well as the materials for each episode to have still frames from them and screenshots for the front and backs, as well as this picture, this high quality picture from one of the shootings of the episodes. So it is thus my assumption that what happened is that Hasbro told them to hold off on releasing Fiveman, because they're part of the licensing as well, like Saban was. And as a result, Shout Factory, before they could even reveal a release date for this, held off on it. Yeah, because Hasbro told them to. And they had to do what Hasbro said, because Hasbro are their connection to Toei. Now, people have said that because of how they've released Fiveman and Abba Ranger now, so I'll get to that in a second, that it must mean, or it might mean, that Shout Factory now have a more direct connection to Toei instead of having to go through Hasbro. I personally don't think that that's what this means. My assumption is that they still have to go through Hasbro, because they still have to get the okay to release these various seasons from them as the license holder of Power Rangers and licensor of Super Sentai material to adapt into Power Rangers. But yeah. So why 3.5 years is the question. Well, like I said, they were restructuring stuff with E1, putting E1 in charge of various things, and E1 would obviously have, the people at E1 would probably have a lot of different ideas of how to distribute these television shows, for Power Rangers at the very least, which is why they took it off of digital platforms from before Beast Morphers, haven't done a DVD release since Super Ninja Steel, and then are putting all the older Power Ranger seasons on the YouTube channel for free viewing with ads. Because I guess they see that as the future that they want to go with. Okay. Whatever. Toei are kind of doing a similar thing where in certain regions you can watch on a specific Toei Tokusatsu YouTube channel that they've set up, officially like subtitled in English, like streams of their various Tokusatsu shows, including Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, the Metal Heroes franchise, and various other Tokusatsu stuff that they've produced. And yeah, but those are region locked to various regions in Japan, or regions in Asia, and other places in the world. Some of them are available over here in the States. Super Sentai isn't, but stuff like Kamen Rider and the other Tokusatsu stuff is, and it's subtitled, which is good. But yeah, eventually I expect that those will be licensed by like a company like Shout Factory or whatever, and released on DVD and Blu-ray. But yeah. So yeah, so it's my assumption that that's what happened, and it took them a few years to realize what they wanted to do with Power Rangers, and it took them, I think, a little bit longer to realize, and I assume that Shout Factory would contact them every so often to see about Super Sentai and everything, but we're probably lost in the shuffle. Or they wouldn't respond, or they would just respond, don't release these yet. We'll tell you. We'll give you the okay. You know? And it would be a while, and so they'd probably shoot them another email. Or call them or something. But yeah. Because for a long-ass time, no one commented on this release. Bruno from MPR Toys had a thing where I think he commented on it. Like, barely. Kind of like lampshading the fact that he teased it, but it didn't come out. But yeah. So eventually, I guess probably earlier this year, 2022, Hasbro and E1 finally gave Shout Factory the okay to release Fiveman and license more stuff. Because this was announced, I believe, Fiveman, I believe, was announced in June of this year, I think it was. However, this is only released through Shout Factory's website for now, for the first several months of its release. It will be released on other storefronts online at some point. They haven't exactly put up listings, considering this came out a few months prior to when I'm recording this video, in September. But we'll see when it does. And then also, Abba Ranger is also a victim of that. But yeah. The reason I think is probably something that they wanted, or they figured that they would, or that they could do, which is basically just like have a first release through that. They have a similar thing with Kamen Rider, although Kamen Rider, at the very least, for Kuga, got a release on other storefronts and everything online. Whereas Super Sentai, because they have so many seasons out already, and they have pretty much a hold on like the Super Sentai fan base and everything, in regards to this, they figured that they can do it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, and then then there's also, if you pre-order certain things through Shout Factory's website, they often have like posters or additional goodies that they send you for free, which is nice. Like when I got Kamen Rider Kuga, I got a poster for that series, which I don't know where I put that, but I'll find it at some point. But yeah. The thing about Shout Factory's website as well is for shipping, you have to get something that's over $50, and because of, like, they discounted Fiveman and then Abba Ranger about $5, I think, or so, from the regular base price, which was like $52, I think, or some shit like that. $52, $53. They discounted it to like 47 something. So there are people who said that they pre-ordered Kamen Rider Kuga on Blu-ray from Shout Factory so that they could get free shipping on Fiveman, which I'll say, as someone who ordered Abba Ranger, the shipping on something that's worth as much as Fiveman doesn't come out, or doesn't make it that much more than the series would be, just by itself. But yeah, it's just annoying though that they discounted that much, that it incentivizes you to buy something else as well, to like artificially increase the price a little bit. It's just stupid. But anyways, yeah. So little iffy in regards to that from Shout Factory, but yeah. But we eventually did get this set, which is very nice. But yeah. something I noted I was going to mention as well. With Gal Ranger being the series that was released before Hasbro officially got their hands on Power Rangers, and thus they had to have the Hasbro logo on Hurricanger's set, is that Wild Force is where Disney bought the Power Rangers franchise. They bought it at the tail end of Time Force from Saban through purchasing Saban Entertainment. When they bought Fox Family, that became ABC Family. Now it's Freeform. For some reason, that just happened. And then, Wild Force was produced with the same production team and everything from the seasons prior. Technically, it was produced under Disney, though. Yeah. But then Ninja Storm was the first season wholly produced under Disney, and also when they moved production to New Zealand. I find that funny that this shit would happen almost 20 years later with these series of the original source material. That's a nice double dip of irony. But yeah. So we finally got Fiveman, which is the 14th series in Super Sentai. And yeah, it was interesting. It's also the first season that we've gotten in regards to an unadapted Sentai. I'm not counting Die Ranger, because Die Ranger technically was still adapted into Power Rangers. It's just that they didn't have the core 5 suits in it. They had the 6 Ranger suit, though, and they used a lot of the combat footage as a base for episodes and stuff, and also saving money. We technically got, I think, at least one of these suits, I believe, for the Yellow Ranger in Power Rangers Super Mega Force, because they were lazy and didn't shoot any new footage to replace it in the shots that it was in some of in 1 or 2 of the episodes. And actually, they went out of their way to be more lazy by producing US versions or New Zealand versions or whatever, Western versions of not only that suit, but 4 other suits that were in the original shots from Gokaiger. Super Mega Force gives me fucking aneurysms. But yeah, but that's not a doc on Fiveman. I just found that bit of trivia funny. And also, I might be getting a nosebleed. Anyways, so then, literally about a day or two after Fiveman was released in September of this year, we got an announcement of Bakuryu Sentai Abba Ranger, which, as you can tell, is the source material to Dino Thunder from Power Rangers. And again, this is the 3rd set to actually have more than just the core team, as it has what is technically the 6th Ranger. It's weird. It's weird what Toei considers 6th Rangers as well. Saban as well. The DVD sets from Shout Factory, in regards to the covers and everything. It's a similar thing where only the core team is on the covers of the various Power Rangers DVDs. Although, like I said, for Ninja Storm, they only had the 3 Wind Rangers, and they didn't have the Thunder Rangers for just any reason. I don't know. And yet on the Mighty Morphin sets, they're cool to have the 6 Rangers with Tommy. But whatever. But yeah, so yeah. Though technically he's just the 5th Ranger. Until Icardi Guy comes in and Gokaiger, and he transforms into him for the rest of the series for some reason. Anyways, but yeah. And, just another normal release. I watched 1 episode from this. It was the episode that they used in Dino Thunder for the episode where there's, in the Power Rangers universe, a Japanese tokusatsu series that uses, I guess, stuff from the Power Rangers adventures from news footage and whatever else as a basis for TV shows over there. They don't really go into too much detail on it, but it's just a wink and a nod to the Super Sentai franchise and everything, as well as the adult or the audience that knows more about Power Rangers than like the kids would. But yeah, I watched that episode the other night, and it was fine. I've seen it before through fan subs, but this was a rewatch of it, and man, the way that they adapted it into Power Rangers was rough, if you've ever seen the original version of it. But yeah, so we have this Bakuryu Sentai Abba Ranger. So what do I expect for the future of Super Sentai as a franchise now that we've gotten 14 of the current 46, soon to be 47 seasons of the show? I expect interesting things to come. Now, if you guys remember what I said a bit ago, in 2018, we got 5 seasons of Super Sentai. Gingaman, Go-Go 5, Time Ranger, Gal Ranger, and Jetman. I believe Jetman came out in between Time Ranger and Gal Ranger. So, yeah. So my assumption is that next year in 2023, we are going to get at least 5 more seasons of Super Sentai. I would hope that they would push for 6. That would be nice. But yeah, you could release one every 2 months. Hopefully that's what they're going to push for, but we'll see. So, yeah. And that's just my assumption. That's my prediction for what's going to happen. And then there's something else that some people have not really caught on with, is the fact that in between Jetman and Fiveman, there were 2 Super Sentai seasons that were released going forward, which was Gal Ranger and Hurricane Ranger. You can find reference to that on the Ranger Wiki for Shout Factory. But yeah. So my prediction is that the next Sentai series to be released, after Abba Ranger, is going to be Deca Ranger. After Deca Ranger is then going to be Turbo Ranger. And then what do you call it? I'm trying to remember the word, but it's like 4 a.m. That is just how this is gonna be. Until they run out. Is 1 past season from before G-Ranger, 2 seasons post G-Ranger again, and then one pre-G-Ranger. That's what I see as what's going to happen. I know some people are more, probably likely to want the pre-G-Ranger Sentais, but if we're being completely honest here, it's probably more lucrative for Shout Factory to license more seasons post G-Ranger than it is pre. Unless if the seasons have any notoriety in the Western fanbase of Super Sentai or anything, and thus good word of mouth that can be generated from an announcement, it is more than likely going to be that. And that's just what I have to say about that in regards to breaking it to you guys. I don't think that there's going to be unless if there's an unforeseen complication, I don't see anything going wrong with future Sentai series DVDs. Unless if they stop being profitable enough to pay for each other or pay for the next ones, or something. I personally don't think there's going to be any real problems with licensing and distribution for Shout Factory. It seems like Hasbro are going to break off from adapting Super Sentai after Cosmic Fury, because they're going to adapt footage from Q Ranger for the mech fights and everything, and I think the monsters. Similar to like Mighty Morphin Season 2 and 3. But yeah, where they just used the G Ranger and one Die Ranger suits for Seasons 2 and 3 of Mighty Morphin. They're going to do a very similar thing where they use upgraded versions of the Dino Fury suits while using mech footage from Q Ranger. And then what it seems like they're probably going to do is just come up with new stuff wholesale, probably in conjunction with Toei, but we'll see. But yeah, it's to break off from the tradition of adapting Sentai and then also having less episodes per year, probably more condensed storylines, more focused storylines as well, and then other stuff that they want to do with the current production team and everything, and current writers and everything. It'll be interesting to see what Hasbro does with the Power Rangers franchise, but since they have no incentive to stop the Super Sentai licensing and distribution by Shout Factory, especially when they get a bit of money from being the licensed holder for Power Rangers and thus have to have their logo on stuff, I personally don't think that they really give a shit to stop it. I don't think there's going to be any future complications. If there are, we'll see. But I don't really think there's going to be. It seems like they have everything worked out as far as they can tell. And nothing is really going to stop them. It's like the Queen songs, Don't Stop Me Now. They're on a roll. So it's like, when it comes to this stuff. So, yeah, and as long as Shout Factory continue to give us decent releases of Sentai, that'll be nice. Now, basically, if they're going to do 5 seasons a year of Super Sentai, that's basically going to be, let's see, because it's basically going to be about 2 seasons pre-G Ranger and then 3 post-G Ranger seasons. I will remind you guys, if we had not gotten them stopped in 2019, if they were to continue the trend of 5 in 2019, we would have had from the top, Hurricaneger, Fiveman, Abba Ranger, Decker Ranger, Turbo Ranger, and Magi Ranger. We would have had all 5 of those. I'm trying to remember Sentai seasons in order. Then in 2020, as far as I can tell, unless if it was impacted by COVID at all, we would have gotten 5 more, which would have been another 2 seasons, I believe, pre-G Ranger. I forget what's the 2 seasons that are directly before Turbo Ranger. But after Magi Ranger, if it's 3, it would be Bokanger, Geki Ranger, and Go-Ranger. Then in 2021, it would be the 2 seasons before season 13 of Super Sentai? Or 12? Season 12? Yeah, I think so. So this is 13, or this is 15, then 14. Yeah, before season 12. The 2 ones before that. And then, after Go-Ranger would be Shinkanger, Go-Sager, and Go-Kaiger. Which, I'm salty as fuck about that. Because for one, we would have had Go-Kaiger during its 10th anniversary year. It's also my favorite Super Sentai series. If you have not watched Go-Kaiger, go watch it. It is fucking fantastic. has some problems, but every Super Sentai series does. It's fucking fantastic. Download at least the first movie and the third movie, because those are fantastic. And minus some pacing problems with some of the fight scenes in the first one, but those are just ones you can overlook. And make sure you download like the overtime subs, because they use the actual Blu-ray RAWs for their script or for their stuff, and the scripts are cleaned up from the original translations they did in 2011. But yeah, we would have gotten that. But yeah. And then in 2022, we would have gotten seasons 8 and 9 of Super Sentai. And then after Gokaigers, Go Busters, Kyoryuger, and either I'm trying to remember what came after Kyoryuger. I can't remember what came after Kyoryuger off the top of my head. Yeah, no, I can't remember. That was the season right before Ninja, I believe. I can't remember for the life of me. Anyways, but yeah. And then... Yeah. And then it would have continued on to there. Now... since we got these two in 2022... if we're gonna have at least 5 seasons a year, though I hope they will push for 6, which I think would be fine, pacing wise. We will then have Turbo Ranger, and the season before that next year, and then the 3 seasons after Abba Ranger, which is Deca Ranger, Maji Ranger, and Bokanger. So it'll be very interesting. And if there's a 6th release, the one right before the season before Turbo Ranger, so season 13, no, season 12. So that'll basically like catch us up to where I think we would have been in 2019 had Hasbro not stopped it. So yeah. And then there's stuff I hope gets like done in regards to like licensing for Super Sentai in the future. What I hope is that at some point Shout Factory licenses and starts releasing like compilation sets of the various Super Sentai movies. Not every Super Sentai series has a movie. And or any specials, so they can easily skip over certain seasons in regards to negotiating with Toei. But granted, I also don't think Toei would like shortchange them or rip them off or anything, because they would say, "Hey, we didn't produce a movie or a set for this. These are the ones that we have out of a list, probably that they would have." So yeah, and those would be interesting. The DVD specials or the direct-to-video specials that Toei has produced over the years, they could release like compilations of those or multi-packs of those, where they have a certain number of seasons per set, and then they have on each disc, similar to the Ultraman sets, they would have each special on its own disc. In regards to the movies, they could do a similar thing, unless if they like do like a bundle per season, or even individual releases, which okay, where they release all the specials and movies pertaining to a particular series in its own set with like 2 discs or so. Then there's also the fact that Toei remastered all of the movies prior to the HD seasons that got Blu-ray releases in HD for their own compilation sets in Japan. And they could easily license those movies for releases and everything. Similar to how, like, Funimation, like, licenses... Or, for One Piece, Funimation in 2019 licensed multiple TV specials and one of the movies. for release over here, for dubbing and release over here in the States. I could easily see something like that happening, for Shout Factory. Will they do it in the near future? I personally don't know. But if it's only going to be 5 sets a year, I would love if they could start licensing the Sentai movies and DVD specials. Because for some of the series, after a while, the movies and specials start mattering towards the continuity. And what I mean by that is, the series I just talked about, Gokaiger. That is my favorite Sentai series. The first Gokaiger movie matters to when you're watching the series. It is directly in continuity. It doesn't have any continuity problems with the series or anything. It is directly in continuity with the show. It directly impacts the main plot of the show. In regards to stuff that happens in the movie. It furthers the character development of the main cast, as well as has good character development for the Gosagers, and then is directly referenced in the movie or in the episode that takes place directly after it, aka episode 17. So, what I think Shout Factory should do is at least license the 3 movies for Gokaiger. The second one really doesn't matter overall in regards to continuity. It's just a side adventure that Toei had made when the production team was shooting Gokaiger. Because it's like a 20-minute movie, or 20-minute short film more so, that was bundled with 2 other short films, one from Kamen Rider and one from something else, I don't know, where they did a triple bill in Japan, because they do that sometimes, or they do that a lot, which is why you'll get short films that are 20 minutes to half an hour. And then the Gokaiger versus Space Sheriff Gavan movie, which would be interesting for them to license, because, Space Sheriff Gavan just got a Blu-ray release from, I know I said the company's name earlier. I can't remember their name for the life of me. I'm sorry, I'm tired. But, that company licensed that shit, and are currently licensing the Metal Heroes franchise and parts of Kamen Rider. But it'll just be interesting to get a release of that. Plus, they could start releasing those on Blu-ray. I imagine Toei wouldn't be that plussed to, not grant them the Blu-ray rights. Especially when they already released Blu-rays of those movies years ago. So, yeah. Also, if they could release 10 Gokaiger, that would be great, but I don't see that happening for a bit. But yeah, and then they could do a 3-pack of the Gokaiger movies. That's just an example, though, of what I think Shout Factory should be trying to do for future releases of these products. So, yeah. Especially as these continue to apparently sell well, and they further license stuff. I would just love if they could start releasing the various movies. And if they could do a compilation set of movies for series that they release in a given year, that would be very interesting and very cool. They could do both compilation sets, multi-packs, and individual releases and everything. Yeah, I would love to see that if they would do that. Don't know if they're going to, but it would be interesting. So yeah. So that has been my 2-hour fucking discussion of the Super Sentai Shout Factory DVDs, where they started from, how we got here, or how we got them, and how we've gotten to where we are now, as well as my predictions and hopes for the future of these releases. Glad to see that they're back in regards to new ones being released. It'll be very interesting to see where they go from here. And yeah, I look forward to more releases. And look forward to more videos in the future where I discuss Super Sentai and I do like reviews and stuff like that for not only Super Sentai but other stuff I plan on doing. So yeah, this is just kind of a taste of the kind of videos that I want to be able, or I want to start doing more of in the future. So yeah. So really not much else to say, guys, so links in the description, all my shit, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, hey everybody, so this is something I wanted to tag on because I forgot to cover this in the original recording, but basically, the question will become, or the question that was on, that I think might be on your minds, is will Shout Factory release Super Sentai, the HD seasons, on Blu-ray? I personally believe that they will, at some point, when they get around to releasing the HD seasons on Blu-ray, and eventually if they license the movies and everything. Why do I say this? Because I just have Abba Ranger here because it's the last release as of the making of this video. But we have 2 Kamen Rider seasons on Blu-ray. On top of that, Kamen Rider Black, which just got announced from another company I can't remember the name of. They just announced that show was going to be released on Discotek. There we go, Discotek. Just announced that show was going to be released on Blu-ray, because I believe that show got an HD remaster in Japan. Here in the West, or US or whatever, when it comes out next year. And mainly, I wouldn't be surprised if Toei does grant them the HD masters and everything to use for the future Super Sentai releases for when they eventually get there. Not to mention that Discotek also released, this is SD on Blu-ray, but it's still better than either the Japanese Blu-rays or if they put these on DVD. Mega Beast Investigator Just Beyond. They put this out on SD on Blu-ray, which are the original 480p masters for the episodes, because this has not gotten an HD remaster in Japan, I believe. They put all 46 episodes on a, I think, probably 50 gigabyte Blu-ray disc. So there's only one disc in this. You can watch my unboxing if you want to see that. And it says right on the back, 46 episodes on one disc, and it says 480p standard def on the video right there, which is actually really nice. So yeah, and I assume it's a 50 gigabyte Blu-ray disc, just so it can hold all the episodes on there. So yeah, with the subtitles and everything intact as well. So yeah. On top of that, you could buy this if you live in Japan. You could easily buy this and save yourself some money, because at this point, this is like 30-some bucks. I bought it for $30-some on Amazon. But then we have Space Sheriff Gavan, which is, I think that's how you pronounce it. This actually did get an HD remaster in Japan. There are Blu-rays in Japan, so that's why this is on Blu-ray here in America, outside of the SD on Blu-ray stuff. And it says right here that it's in 1080p. So, and on top of that, there's 4 discs for the 44 episodes. So, they gave this an HD remaster in Japan. Probably because it's, at least I assume, fondly remembered by the people who grew up with it and the people who discover it in Japan. So yeah, no idea why they haven't given Just Beyond or some of the other Metal Heroes shows HD remasters, but whatever. So yeah, so we have that. Now, what seasons of Super Sentai would Toei allow Shout Factory to release on Blu-ray over here in the States? The first one, or the first batch, or the first category would be the HD seasons. Now, Super Sentai, there's two different things in regards to the production of Super Sentai as a whole. Super Sentai, for the first 29? Yeah, 29 seasons. So from Go Ranger up until Maji Ranger was in, all those seasons were in 4x3. They were blocked and shot in 4x3. Granted, I don't know if there are any seasons that, if they were to go back to the original source film, if they could open up the sides to remaster into widescreen. And even if they could, we don't know necessarily if it's like a Star Trek situation or a Star Trek TNG situation where they shot it on 35mm film, but when they shot Star Trek TNG, because they knew it was going to be blocked at 4x3, they not only shot the episodes with that blocking in mind for the cinematography, but they also had the sides be taken up by, most of the time, by film equipment or people in charge of the equipment or whatever, just off to the side where they'd be cut off by the black bars. That's why for the Blu-rays, when TNG was remastered into into HD, they couldn't put it into widescreen, is because of that. And they did talk about that, I believe, in a special feature on the Season 1 TNG Blu-ray, which you can find on YouTube if you're curious. The only other option was to, I think, use the shots that would have been okay to use in the open frame, but then crop the rest of the footage, minus the space stuff, which is mostly like a mix of models and CGI, which would be fine to just, open up the sides and everything. Everything else, every other shot for the live action footage would be cropped to widescreen, and you don't want to do that because it would ruin the cinematography, it would ruin the blocking, it would ruin basically just the composition of shots. That's why I get on Funimation and other companies that crop 4x3 images into widescreen. Talking about Dragon Ball Z right there. For the longest time, Funimation, for some reason, just wanted to crop Dragon Ball Z into widescreen. It's only with the 30th anniversary Blu-rays and then the Steelbook re-releases of those remasters that we actually got the series in 4x3. Granted, the first episode was cropped a little bit more than it needed to be, especially when we have the level set to the first 34 episodes, and it's shown that their film masters are fine to have in that wider crop rather than the squished crop that they had. But yeah, so it might be like that, or the film might be maybe not be a 35mm film. It might be like 16mm film, so it's only in 4x3. But granted, I don't necessarily know if Toei would have shot it on 16mm film rather than 35, but who knows? I don't know what kind of film material that they have. I mean, there's also the fact that Dragon Ball Z and GT, minus some of the more important episodes, which is a very small number of them for at least Z, were shot and saved on 16mm film. Only a select number of episodes were done on 35mm, and then the films were on 35, I believe. So, yeah. And if you've ever watched The Beatles Get Back miniseries on Disney Plus or on now it's on DVD and Blu-ray, I think it's at least on DVD, but I think it's on Blu-ray as well. You know how badly that bad remastering of old 16mm film can be if you don't take proper care. So, yeah. So I wouldn't want Toei to do that. But anyways, yeah. So until Toei properly remasters the first... Actually, from what I know, they remastered Go Ranger and Jacka into HD, which I'll get on that in a second. But until they remaster the rest of the seasons into HD, which, considering they released Deca Ranger onto Blu-ray with upscales of the SD footage, I wouldn't expect for a very long time, if ever. Until like the process becomes cheap enough that they can do it, and they would actually want to do it. It just, I don't know, I wouldn't expect it. And even then, it would probably just be a slow process of them doing it. So, yeah. So, with Ranger, that was when Super Sentai went widescreen. It was never edited or broadcast in HD, as far as anyone can figure. So it is 480p, as far as I know. Maybe 480i. But it is widescreen as well. You can have one or the other when it comes to HD and widescreen. You can have HD and have it be in 4x3, like the Star Trek TNG Blu-rays, the TOS Blu-rays. Blu-rays of generally older shows that were not shot with the 16:9 aspect ratio in mind, or not preserved so the aspect ratio could be fine. Or with if the film was like that, where it was like blocked for that. Generally just older shows that were shot on film before the advent of videotape. So yeah, or if studios had enough money that they thought ahead and did shoot their stuff on film. So yeah. And like I said, that's how we got Star Trek TOS and TNG on Blu-ray. We could also eventually get, hopefully we will get, Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Voyager on Blu-ray, but we'll see. Or in HD, but we'll see. So, yeah. The first season of Super Sentai to go HD was a few years later after Ranger. Or maybe it's like 4 years later. It's like 3 or 4 years later. And sorry for the noise with my laptop. I forgot that the sound was on. But basically, where was I? The first season to go HD was Shinkanger. That's when TVs were officially in HD. That was 2009, I believe. So yeah, and every season since Shinkanger has been released in HD. Granted, Shinkanger was also the first series in Japan to be released on Blu-ray. However, it was not released on Blu-ray, I believe, until after Gokaiger started airing in 2011. So about 2 years after it officially aired, that's when Japan started getting Blu-rays for Shinkanger. So yeah, and since those seasons are over a decade old at this point, Shinkanger again, 2009, so that's 13 years at this point. Shinkanger being 13 years old, I can't help but think that they would release Shinkanger on Blu-ray here in America when those come out. So yeah, just wouldn't be surprised. And then we get Goseiger, Gokaiger, Go Busters, Kyoryuger, Tokyuger, Ninja, Q Ranger, Ryu Soldier, and whatever other seasons. And if Shout Factory thinks to license them, Akiba Ranger and Kyoryuger Brave / Dino Force Brave. If they license those, Toei has HD masters of them, and they've already released the Blu-rays a while ago. They can release those on Blu-ray over here, most likely. We got Kamen Rider 01, which was at the time that it came out. This was 2021, I believe. But because we got Kamen Rider 01, which was about a year or two old by the time it came out, here in the States, on Blu-ray, granted with borked masters a bit, because from what I've heard from Sound Out 12, from a video that he did for talking about Kamen Rider Blu-rays or releases here in America, from what apparently has been said by the people at Shout Factory, Toei gave them really weird masters. They gave them, like, streaming masters or whatever that they had to use where I believe some things were, like, hard subbed into the images, and on top of that, I think it was, like, 1080i or something like that, so they had, or maybe something similar. I assume 1080i. So what they had to do was deinterlace the episodes in this and the specials that were in this that were not 1080p, which I do appreciate. You do want to deinterlace shit like that because interlacing makes an image look really bad. On top of that, apparently interlacing makes file sizes bigger on videos, which is weird. Go figure. Basically what interlacing is versus progressive scan. Interlacing is where an image, you only have half of the lines per image that are captured when you have something in interlaced format. Progressive scan, you have all the lines for an image. Like, say, the image you're watching right here. If I were to shoot this in 1080i, you would not have as clear of a picture and not have as good of a picture than what you're seeing this in right now, which is 1080p. That's kind of the thing. 1080p, you get a more, like it said, it's called progressive scan, so you have, like, more picture data and everything, but somehow it takes up less file sizes than interlaced. I don't understand that whatsoever, but yeah. And generally, as you get higher in regards to resolution, it's less noticeable, but yeah. And I actually have a couple of releases of Doctor Who Series 5 and 6 before the BBC converted those to progressive scan. And they're the original Blu-rays versus the Blu-rays I have that came in the 50th anniversary set. With Series 1 through 4, the David Tennant specials, and Series 7. Whereas Series 7 was just released, I believe, in its entirety in 1080p, which is great. The original releases of those from 2010 and 2011, I think. Maybe 2011 and 2012. Those were originally in 1080i. But you don't quite notice because of, also Doctor Who was shot at and broadcast at, and I believe on the Blu-rays, even here in America, 25 frames a second rather than 24, because of how PAL regions work in regards to that kind of shit, and mainly just stuff like England. So, yeah, they shoot at like 1080i and 25 FPS, but now they save shit at 1080p as well for home video releases and streaming, so that's good. But yeah, whereas Kamen Rider Kuga, because of the fact that it has Blu-rays already in Japan, Toei just gave them, I believe, the Blu-ray masters from their own releases, which is fine, and that's perfectly good. So, yeah, and then whatever other seasons of Kamen Rider that Shout Factory released, I assume, minus the fact that I believe they have the original 70s Kamen Rider show and a few of the other, like, classic, like, seasons of Kamen Rider. I assume they may just focus on the Heisei era on the Heisei and Reiwa eras. So yeah, and if you don't know what that is, that refers to the and Super Sentai is also under this, and I think other franchises are also under this as well, like Ultraman. They refer to the name of the Japanese emperors of the time that the seasons were produced and aired. So yeah. So they might just focus on the Heisei era, because those are newer, probably cheaper to license and whatever. But granted, apparently Toei charges an arm and a leg for Kamen Rider. I don't know why, but they do. But granted, also, Super Sentai probably doesn't have as much pull in regards to money, which is why Shout Factory, I think they licensed like 5 seasons of Kamen Rider, a mix of like classic and newer Kamen Rider. But yeah, but I don't believe I've licensed anymore. But then you have why do I keep forgetting the name of these people? Discotek. You have Discotek, who licensed Kamen Rider Black, and then there's a company in Hawaii that licensed Kamen Rider. I forget the name of it. I don't know why I want to say RX, but I don't think that that's what it is. It's Kamen Rider something. But they only have the rights to release those DVDs in Hawaii. You can get them through an online store, I believe, and have it shipped to your house in the continental United States. But they can only produce those things for Hawaii. Sucks, but yeah, that's really the only place that they got it. But, yeah. I wonder if Shout Factory would set up a distribution deal with them to get that show over here. But yeah. But basically, yeah. So the first group would be Shinkanger onwards. Shinkanger to present. So season 33 onwards for Super Sentai to be released on Blu-ray here in America. The second group would obviously be the movies and specials that were produced in HD and have HD masters available from Toei to use. Mainly those would apply to the theatrical films that were released even since Go Ranger. They were released in Japanese cinemas and everything back then, since the 70s. And Toei gave those remasters, I want to say probably for the 35th anniversary. Maybe, actually it might have been a little bit afterwards. Because I believe that those were compilation releases with multiple discs of all the movies in, like, 2 different collections. For the ones that weren't already on Blu-ray. Although they might have, I don't know. They might have packaged in the second set, they might have packaged in ones that were already released. Which would be fine. But yeah, so the second group would be those. And then the specials that were both TV specials and DVD specials that were produced in HD as well. Now, for most of the seasons of Super Sentai, they don't necessarily matter to be licensed right away because they don't impact the overall narratives or stories or plots of their seasons. The one that I know actually impacts the plot of the season would be the first Gokaiger movie. The first Gokaiger movie directly impacts the plot of the main series, and I think I might have already talked about this. The Gokaiger Go Sager 199 Great Hero Battle movie, because it advances the plot with giving the Gokaigers the greater powers of several of the other Super Sentai teams from the past, like before the 21st century, that I guess they just didn't want to do in the TV series proper. And also forwards the Ghost Sagers as characters, and then also has other things as well as a cameo for Gokai Silver at the end. I think it's in a post-credit scene. And then, and then episode 17 references the events of that movie. So, yeah, it's pretty important that they license that movie to be released with Gokaiger. And then there's a DVD special. I don't know if it was released on any of the Gokaiger Blu-ray sets, but it was a DVD special that had Gokai Silver, Ikari Guy, and Marvelous get fused together with a gun that I think was Insorn in that series, made with the Zangak tech and everything. They get fused together into one person, and with both of them sharing the body and everything and controlling it, and then whichever one's controlling the body, the voice comes out and everything. And it basically also features a bunch of quick changes of all 35 Reds up until that point, which is actually pretty cool. As well as a funny bit where Guy uses his Gokai Silver Key in Marvelous's Mobiritz, and it turns into like a semi-hybrid. of the Gokai red and silver suits. With the Gokai silver, like, torso and pants, but then the Gokai red helmet and boots. So, yeah. If Toei would give them that would be very interesting. Toei has given Shout Factory some stuff to use that I don't think a lot of people would have assumed they would have. Like, there was a TV special that recapped all Super Sentai, I think during Die Ranger? That people wouldn't have expected Toei to give Shout Factory with the license for Die Ranger, but they did. If it's not Die Ranger, it's one of the other series. And then I think there might have been one other instance of that as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah. And then with Kamen Rider 01, funnily enough, Toei not only included the series, but the movie, which was real-time, and special episodes. There's like one or two that weren't included, though. But they gave them that, those masters and everything, and I guess included them in the licensing deal. And they're on their own disc. And then I think some of the special episodes are, or at least one of the special, yeah, 35.5 is on disc 6, which I think is a special episode. So, yeah, or like a shorter episode or something like that. But yeah, you basically have that. Okay, so Shout have the original Kamen Rider and also Kamen Rider Ryuki. I wonder if they could at all get the license for Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. That would be interesting. But yeah. So, I would like to see Kamen Rider Ryuki and the original Kamen Rider released as well, which I assume they might next year. But, yeah. So that would be interesting if, for Gokaiger at the very least, they could license at least the first movie and that DVD special with the series. I don't necessarily know if Toei is going to do that, though. Or if they could license all 3 of the Gokaiger movies as well as that DVD special with the TV show. Because Gokaiger had 3 movies. The first one was the Gokaiger vs. Goseiger movie. Then you have a 20-minute movie, which was triple billed with 2 other movies that Toei made for like Kamen Rider and one other franchise, I believe. Then you have the Gokaiger vs. Space Sheriff Gavan movie, which will be interesting. I'm pretty sure that only Shout Factory could license that because it's a Super Sentai movie with Gavan as a guest character. But it would be interesting if they could license that. Because that's a really good movie as well, and it's really good, like, character development for Marvelous. It's good reintroduction of Space Sheriff Gavan and everything, and yeah. So we basically have that. So, the movies. Then you have the series that Toei have bothered to apparently remaster into HD, which, as far as I've been told, are Go Ranger and Jacka. The first 2 series in the franchise. And would Toei give Shout Factory the rights to do that? Now, I imagine if even if they rescind or hold back the rights to release the shows on Blu-ray, they would still probably give Shout Factory 480p downscaled versions of the 1080p masters that they have. Because, like, why give them borked masters from, I guess, probably older DVD releases? Granted, Toei's not the best with doing that sometimes, if Sailor Moon is anything to go by, but granted, also, apparently Toei doesn't have the best masters even in Japan. Somehow, for that show. But yeah. So we just have that. And yeah, I don't know. But would they do that? I imagine after some time, like if we're doing two past seasons a year, probably. With Super Sentai. It's, again, assuming it's 5 seasons per year at least, if not 6. That would be at least 2 past seasons a year, I think. My assumption is that. Basically, with like 3 seasons post Ranger again. It would take several years, because we had Fiveman, which is the 15th series. So if that's 2 a year, that would take about 7 years. That would take about 7 more years. So, and at that point, Toei would, if they have their own Blu-ray releases of those shows in HD out in Japan, they would be old. Those masters would be old enough that Shout Factory could license them probably at a decent price, and Toei would be okay with licensing it to them, because they would have all of the sales that they're probably ever going to make for the most part from those releases in Japan from the people who wanted them. And yeah. Will Toei remaster more Super Sentai seasons pre-HD into HD? That's also a question. I could see them doing more of the series with more practical effects and less CGI into HD. Probably less green screen effects as well. Because I imagine for these, like I said in the proper like discussion video, or the first 2 hours of the video, that with these seasons, I think Time Ranger was the first to actually use CGI in the way that they did. They would have to recomposite a lot of those special effects if they didn't save them to film when they were producing those. For some visual effects, that wouldn't be that bad. For others, they would have to whole cloth like redo a lot of the CGI, and I doubt that they're going to want to spend the money and time to do that. So they'd probably upscale the CGI footage, the like wholly CGI footage, depending on what they saved from years ago as well. But you know, Toei has a history of like junking things that they should have saved a very long time ago. The broadcast audio to Dragon Ball, for instance, and Dragon Ball Z. Fun times. But anyways, yeah. It's really a big question of if they will. Again, from what I know, they've been slowly doing it over the last bunch of years, but will they, is the question. Are they going to spend the money and the time to do so? Go Ranger and Jacka have a total of like a little over 100 episodes between them. So that's the equivalent of like a little over 2 Sentai series, or general Sentai series, worth of episodes. Because most Sentai series, like I said, have between 45 and 50 episodes, depending on what season you're talking about. And, you know, if they remaster like one a year, it'll take a long-ass time to do. If they do like several seasons, it might be a little bit too much money for them. So, yeah. Especially when they probably deem this standard F masters good enough. I don't know. But then, would Shout Factory re-release the seasons of Sentai that they've already released on DVD, like what Discotek has done with some of their licenses of SD material on Blu-ray, for SD on Blu-ray? I don't know. From what I know, Shout Factory doesn't usually do SD on Blu-ray. And this is kind of a relatively new thing. Granted, this release is from, I think, 2019. But this is not a thing that most companies do. This is a thing that I think Discotek started to do because they realized they could. And they have since with more licenses that they've rescued, like with the various Sonic shows and now Digimon Season 1 and the English version. Although apparently they do have the Japanese version coming with, I think, because Toei, I think, gave the original Digimon an HD remaster. So they have that, and then they have other shows that they released on standard F on a Blu-ray. Shout Factory don't do that, or they haven't adopted doing that. So it's hard to say if they would do that for Super Sentai. Not to mention that, like, since they've already released so many of these, and they're not doing that already, they're probably going to stick with DVDs for Sentai until they get to the HD seasons, where they can release Blu-rays of those seasons because they'd have proper HD masters. So, yeah, sucks, but that's kind of the thing that we're dealing with. So, yeah. Again, though, they could change their mind. They could adopt doing that. I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's just an extra half hour's worth of content that I wanted to... I didn't think it was going to take that long, but it ended up because I like talking about this stuff. I don't know. It's like when you're talking about this stuff, you have to remember the companies that you're talking about, as well as the shows and franchises you're talking about. So, yeah. There's also Kaiju no Kami, who on Twitter, I believe, or no, in his video talking about, I think, Abba Ranger, when he did an unboxing for that, he talked about if they would release Deca Ranger on Blu-ray, because Deca Ranger has Blu-rays in Japan. Like I said a bit ago, Deca Ranger was released on Blu-ray for its 10th anniversary in 2004, as well as when it got, or with the fact that it got a 10th anniversary movie that brought back the cast and everything for a new adventure. And like the 10 years later movie. And because Toei were starting to do that at the time. They did it with Hurricaneger, then they did it with Deca Ranger. I don't know if they did it with any other shows, though. And now they're doing it again with Hurricaneger and Abba Ranger for 20 years later movies. But yeah. And they, I guess, decided to capitalize on the hype for Deca Ranger, as well as, I believe, Deca Ranger's, popularity in Japan with the Japanese audience, and decided to re-release the show on Blu-ray. However, those are upscales from the original 480p masters, like I said. Those are not a proper HD remaster. So, what I imagine is going to happen is Shout Factory's probably not going to see the point in releasing the show on Blu-ray if it's just upscales of the masters that were on the DVDs. My assumption is, unless if I'm proven wrong in an announcement, whenever they announce they have Deca Ranger, that they're just going to put it on DVD. I wouldn't blame them, honestly. But yeah. So I don't really think I have much else to say in regards to this. It's just interesting to me to speculate and think about this kind of stuff. I like thinking about this stuff and talking about it. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know. So, yeah. So not much else to say. Links in the description, all my shit. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one.